Okay, I think I've finally solved this horrible, horrible issue. I am so sorry. My computer, you know, I haven't done a live session in a few months and haven't updated my apps, haven't really like been doing a lot. And of course, the day I want it, it just totally kicks the can and well, we get what we get. But thank you so much everyone who is here. I really appreciate you all being here and tuning in to this live session, live listening session with, Jose's and my performance. Yeah, so I just want to kind of re-ask this question if I can, and I've got my eye on the chat, so feel free to just, write a little bit. But my question is, um, what was perhaps unexpected to you in the performance, and also just give me a little thumbs up if you can hear me in the chat there. And as we go along and I kind of like ask you these questions, and by all means ask me all the questions that you want, whether it be through this prompt or whatever. But yeah, my curiosity, as a performer, as a trumpet player, as a composer, electronic musician, whatever we want to label me as today. Um, yeah, I think my curiosity is in discovering what else can be done with my instrument. And I think a lot of that comes from just being an inquisitive person. But I think another thing for me personally that is intriguing, and how it led me down this noisy path of trumpet is is that my curiosity was, oh, well, coming from actually taking a break on the trumpet, to be honest. And to give you like a quick background on all of this, um, in a few years ago, I stopped playing trumpet. I wound up focusing more on composition and electronics, and really diving deeply into what I would consider is like another part of my practice, right? If we I think we all take musical journeys, however that may be, and the journey at that time was that I just needed a break from the trumpet. I was a little burnt out from undergrad and grad school, and yeah, thank you. Um, Thanks for the thumbs up there, and bit of a delay, but sorry. But Yeah, I was burnt out from grad school and just felt like I needed a break from the trumpet. Had been playing just about 20 years or so, and yeah, it was just about taking some time away and discovering other areas of my musical artistry. And during that time, I spent mostly just composing and doing electronics, and be that producing stuff or working in electronics or working with hardware or software or whatever. Um, I really dove deep and made that a practice. And what I mean by that, like it's as if I were going to practice trumpet. I would be sitting down diligently and objectively critiquing the work that I would be doing as a musician, as an artist. And and so when I finally came back to trumpet after 3 years, all the input and experience that I had gained from being more focused on as a composer and electronic musician and such, I transferred to the trumpet. And what I mean by that is um, the concepts of creating sound and being a synthesist and manufacturing a sound from its fundamental components, I wound up applying to the trumpet, and that curiosity uh, wound up leading me down this path to make these rather odd sounds. And so now I'm going to go back to the chat because both Nassim and Ali have asked some questions. Let's see here. Yeah, Nassim, thank you for your comment about the expectations from the portion, the sections of the piece. Yeah, and so talking about the texture, yeah, the texture in the first part, I would say maybe this improvisation between Jose and I had maybe three sections. There was the opening, then there was this middle section that was more sustained ish, and then the ending. And and yeah, yeah, Nassim, I think if we had brought it back to the opening or left the texture the same, right? Um, the uh, expectation, right, that we as a listener and as a performer, because we're in real time composing this. In some ways, uh, I have to be interested in it, and I have to be super invested in that moment and in that texture. And while I think I think yes, it would be great if we like brought things back, but also perhaps like in those moments, because uh those improvisations were from a year ago. Um in those moments I may have heard something, right, that just triggered a thought or a memory or a sound, and kind of bouncing off the ideas I was saying. Oh, I really like this sound. I know how this sound is created. And if I know how that sound is created, I can do that on my trumpet. I've got the know-how now of my instrument and how sound is manufactured to just do that. And let me give you a good example here. So at one point, I was doing some electric bird sounds, which I'll play a little bit. And, out of all the textures that had been happening around those moments, they were all dense, very, very dense textures. And a contrast to that was the bird sounds. And I mean, like, maybe I'm getting a little bit too into this, Nassim, and by all means, just, tell me, David, just keep pushing on. But I mean, as a something that I think about, and I think this goes kind of to your point, Nassim, is, and I mentioned this the other day to my roommates when we were improvising, is I want to have a conversation with you. I really want to have a conversation and a dialogue. And don't say anything or don't play anything that you wouldn't say. And by having that outlook on what is about to unfold in time, we we mean it a lot more. And what I we the general we as performers or as improvisers or whatever you want to give us as a label in those moments. But I think it's very important that um a dialogue or a conversation, or even if it's you're on your own, make it with full intent and say something that's meaningful. Yeah. Maybe that was too long of an answer, Nasim, but yeah. And Ali, yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to push this where I can, as far as I can go. I attribute that to my teachers and my influences in music. Um, and I think that's inherently me. And what I mean by that is that, well, I really like pushing and moving forward, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's nothing. I think it's great regardless which way you choose. But my embodiment is to just see how far we can go. Um, however you want to label that. Hey, Jose, what's up, man? Okay. Oh yeah, I think there were some like almost unison moments or something along those lines that just really worked. And kind of going back to the point that I was saying, Nasim, it's like the conversation was asking for that. The conversation was that we were actually saying the same thing, maybe in a slightly different way, but saying like this, and all of those moments just I think that's what made that moment so special for me. Probably back then, a year ago, and just now, because that was the most unexpected thing. I think there was so much contrast that unity moment really, it meant something. It said something beyond, uh, it just said something where it wasn't two individuals saying something. It was one entity coming together. And I think that's the beautiful thing about what we do as musicians and artists. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, maybe I play a little bit, yeah, and then we'll come back. I'm sorry, I maybe I'll put a little reverb on, and we'll see how that works. Yeah. Well, we get a little something that's tonal, I guess, today. All right. Could we call it music? That's a great question. That's actually a great question, Ali. You know, um, that's actually just the most brilliant question that I've been thinking about a lot recently. Like, what is music? And um, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I think there's a lot of that's such a loaded question. I mean that because I think uh, the first thing that we maybe should try to go through, and I've been thinking about this so much. I'm like writing some ideas about this. Oh yeah, but uh yeah, no, but this goes into this, Ali. This totally goes into this, and I'll get to everyone's questions in a moment. Um, but so let me ask this question, right? If we're asking what is music, I think maybe the next thing, the first question that we should ask is to to understand what like what do we call music? Like, what is music? Um, Maybe we ask, how do we hear? I don't know. I mean, I have very finite definitions of that and very subjective um, views on how do you hear? And I mean that live in a oh my goodness, sorry. No, Ali, I think this is like actually the I think that actually is the most beautiful thing about your question. Like, you asking this makes us ask all these other questions. It's a fundamental question. And that fundamental question leads us to some answer. So if we ask what is music, and then I ask, well, how do you hear, in a response, then we're getting somewhere, right? Because going back to what I was talking about earlier, when I learned a lot about electronics, I learned how to create a sound. How and in doing that, I learned a lot about psychoacoustics and actually how the ear works. And so, okay, let's say that we've figured out how we hear. Maybe the next question that we ask is, how does sound travel to our ears? And then I would say, oh, well, it's air. Air is the propagator of sound, right? If you, for instance, drop a pebble into a pond or something, you see the ripples, right? The propagation of the ripples is the water. The propagation of sound is air. So now we're getting closer to not only answering what is music, but how do we hear and what is sound. And when we break all of these things down, and I'm going to kind of jump through all of this, I ask then, how do we create a sound, right? And then once we've created a sound, well, we can now say that those sounds have what we would call pitch and timbre. And once we have that, we can make a melody, right? Trumpet is a melody instrument. It can play one note and it goes along. Well, what if we stack those notes? Then we get harmony. So now we're dealing with more and more things. And if we put that harmony through temporality, we have music over time or duration. And when we have, well, not music over time, excuse me, we have movement over time of these pitches. And then we can talk about rhythm, because that's the next step. And then when we talk about rhythm, then we can talk about all the things that come along with what we would call Western music, right? Meter and the things like that. But that doesn't necessarily apply to folk music. I mean, it's there, but it's not in a sense written down like we do as Western musicians. And through kind of defining these things or coming to some idea of them all, we get closer to the answer of what do we call music. And I think that's actually very subjective. I mean, we can call anything music, right? And I think that's actually the beautiful thing, you know. In the mornings, I have my coffee outside and I listen to the birds, and I think that's music. Sometimes when I hear a fan in spinning and I can hear the low hum, I think that's music. So I think, you know, I think it's such a beautiful question that you've asked. It's a loaded one, and I don't think it's got a right or a wrong answer. Yep. I hope that kind of answers your question. It's a deep one. So Jose, how did I get into this world of improvisation? That's a great question. Thank you. Well, prior to doing what I do now, I was an orchestral trumpet player, classical trumpet player, and that was mostly my focus. I wanted to play in orchestra. I really like playing second trumpet, and I have fond memories of playing, I think, Beethoven's third or fourth piano concerto and sitting for 40 minutes and then playing my 3 minutes of notes and then waiting until the piece was over. And I really loved that. And during my undergrad, I was super into it. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, let me see what else there is out there, and started getting into new music, and found that I had a love for that because it was extremely challenging, and I got to play all the bars pretty much. But I think that is what started to lead me to improvisation. And during those years of undergrad, I was improvising with my roommate, and not necessarily on trumpet, but doing electronics. And when I decided to do my master's at CalArts, I made a set of 3 goals. And those goals were to compose a lot more, to learn electronics, because at that point I had no knowledge, and to play trumpet in ways that I had never played before. And that meant playing experimental music, playing more contemporary music, and improvising in not a standard type of way. Like that's good. Like playing standards is good, and doing that is beneficial. Don't get me wrong, but that wasn't like what I meant by that, because playing trumpet in ways that I had never imagined meant going outside the boundaries which I had already known a context to. And so I was very fortunate to be working with like Vinnie Golia and Wadada Leo Smith a bit while I was at CalArts, and working with peers as well who were there, and have since we've gone on done a lot of other projects, but it was a time of just pure exploration, and I'm super grateful for that because I remember vividly the first day I played a split tone, and I was in a ensemble with Ulrich Krieger conducting, and we were doing electronic music, but with not electronic instruments. And I was very close mic'd. I think it was like an MD 421 microphone. I think was that Shure or Sennheiser. And oh man, I was just like, it was in the bell, and I was on the verge of the split tone, and I could hear it coming through the monitor. I was like, what is this? And Ulrich was just saying, this is the one. Keep doing that. That's it. And then finally it clicked. And then I vividly remember just going into the practice room, and I've got videos somewhere of me doing this and just like experimenting for hours, just trying to get this to work. And then, it happened. It happened. I found that sweet spot. Right? Those are the notes, and then it's right in between there. And that was a door. That was a door that I stepped through with both feet, and I never looked back. And so I think if you're I think the thing is we have to take from what we've grown with, and just ask ourselves, like, honestly, just truly honestly, like, is this it? Is this right? Is this wrong? Is this what I want? And that will lead you to not the answer. I think the answer is wrong, but your solution, right? One of my mentors, Marco Blau, recently put a like a feelers out there for people, because he was curious if there were any split tones written before 91 or 93, I think, and he was telling the story about how his teacher wasn't so encouraging of those sounds, but the composer who he was working with at the time when he was in university was like, oh, keep doing these sounds, like they're fantastic, like I am encouraging you to continue to explore these. And Marco's wound up writing in this article that he at that time was working through his trumpet playing, and he had some issues with fracked notes, and that's how he discovered the split tone. And inevitably, through learning the split tones, his cracked notes no longer were an issue. He found a solution through experimentation and curiosity. And I am forever grateful for this perspective that Marco has, like, kind of openly said, because I just think that sometimes the answer that we're trying to find is somewhere else in our peripherals, and maybe putting some focus on that just gives you the right framework to address what's going on over there. And I also, to answer your question, just listen to music. Listen to as much music as you can from as many people as possible, even if you don't like it. I think that's actually the most beneficial thing that you can do, is find music that you don't like, and not just turn it off, but figure out why. Why don't you like that music? Maybe you don't understand. And actually, to kind of go into it just a moment, I did a course a few years ago, the Stockhausen courses, and they have a theme every year, and the theme was, in that course, was learning to ask why. And I think, well, I know that that has stayed with me, and I perpetually ask why. Why am I doing this? Not why is this happening to me, but why did this happen? Like, very curious, like a child, right? And not because because I said so, but out of just pure curiosity. Okay. Sorry, Jose. I don't know if that answers your question. I hope that that does. Um, moving on. Ali, mostly an expression of self and no rules. That's interesting because I would say that the rules of what Jose and I did were based on the conversation that we had musically. And what I mean by that is exactly I'll go on this perfect tangent. Light cones. Light cones are actually the something that's very very interesting because the the idea of a light cone is that two entities in space are traveling perhaps in the same direction. But the distance between the two light cones is so far spread apart that if an event happens in, let's say, this being, while they're moving in this direction, well, if it's a cone, for instance, let's say like this, right? As the two entities move forward, the other entity will not know that the other entity had some event happen until it within its light cone. And only at that point are we able to look into the past and see what has happened. Now, why am I telling this story, right? I think it's very interesting. Well, that story has really nothing to do what we're talking about in regards to an expression of self and the idea of no rules. And that's exactly it. Jose and I were having a conversation, and if there were no rules, and not that we said that there were rules, I don't think we even set ground rules, but I think the unsaid rules in that were that we were trying to have a conversation. And that doesn't mean that I couldn't go off on a light cone tangent in our musical conversation. But that light cone tangent has to contextually perhaps develop in a way. And I'm not saying like these are the rules, but these are some frameworks in which I approach music. Um, but that also doesn't mean that I don't break my rules. I did, again, going back to a week or so ago, my roommates and I played an improvisation. And yeah, I totally interjected into the conversation that was being had and said my own thing. And you can look at this compositionally through many works. I'm going to give an example of this only because my research is focused on these types of musics by Stockhausen. But for instance, if you look at the work Microphony by Stockhausen, which is a piece for four performers and large tam tam, the parameters that are set in the score, and let me just set up the piece a little bit better. So let's say that this microphone is the tam tam, and we have two performers here and two performers here on the other side, and they may not be able to, see each other. Well, a parameter is that they may be able to complement the other performers. Interactions. They may be able to destroy those interactions, or they may be able to be neutral. And I think just even, again, Ali, putting those ideas into a fundamental framework gives you a lot more options than, saying, like, this is the rule and I can't break the rule. Because as we've progressed through music, we've learned to break the rules, set parameters for breaking the rules, and then break those rules that are breaking the rules. And so, I mean, I I think the authenticity, the intent, the um, moment dictate a lot of these things. Yeah, I mean, look, Ali, I think that what I, I I think these questions that you're asking and these ideas, they I, I think that in the coming weeks I'm going to be trying to develop some things to give back to everyone, because I think that sound and music is just such a wonderful thing that the more the more you know about it, perhaps the more we can continue to appreciate these things that are in our world, and truly explore them more. And I mean, come on, if I could, in a course of a few classes, try to define what is music, going back to that question, and at the end of it, you don't have an answer of what is music, but you have a deeper appreciation for sound and musics. I think that gives you a better idea of what is music. Um, yeah, I mean, I hope that enlightens you some more, and gives you some answers. So maybe with that, I'll play once more. I'll play until about 8 o'clock, my time, so the next 4 or 5 minutes or so, and then yeah. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you to Jose for asking me to host today. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all tuning in. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please follow me on Instagram. These things help. I don't put out content super regularly. I've kind of been on a diligent work break recently, but there's some stuff coming down the pipeline that I'm getting ready to release. And when you do these things, it keeps you informed. And yeah, like my Facebook page, I have a artist page on Facebook under my name, David Aguila. And um, yeah, let's play. And Ali, yeah, I'll answer this last question because I think that's a good one. Um, and I'm actually, I don't know if I could say it um any better than the artist Chloe Wise. Uh, she's a Canadian visual artist, and she gave a talk at Cal Arts when I was there, and she actually gave a talk on authenticity. And I really appreciated the talk because her work is hilariously authentic and beautiful and yeah. So I would recommend you check out Chloe's work. But the one in particular is her, I think, like Nordic heavy metal band, and she showed this, and it was like the heavy metal band, and like I mean they're in all like face paint and stuff like this, and they're they're doing like a vacation video in like Florida, and they're like, oh yeah, we're getting ready to release our album, blah, blah, blah. And it's so honest, right? They truly believe 100% of what they're saying. There is no doubt in their mind that what they're saying is false. And that authenticity, that belief in what they're doing is like that is the conversation, right? That is if we're talking to music, that is the authenticity in it, is like they truly believe that what they're saying is a reality, is a truth. And that not to say that they can retroactively say, oh yeah, that was wrong, but in a piece of art, in this sense, like they're trying to authentically believe that they are this band, and they're really getting ready to release everything in and whatnot. So I think to I hope that answers part of your question. Again, I would recommend that you check out Chloe's work. And then Nassim, thank you. How did I come up with these? I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier in the conversation, Nassim, by pulling from the concepts which I had learned electronic music and transferred them to the trumpet, right? Because if I'm going back just a moment, I hear this. I know exactly how to make that sound on the trumpet, even though the saxophone is playing it. Or, I think that and this is, again, kind of exposing yourself to the more music and the more parts of our art form as possible gives you a deeper understanding. This spectrum, the saxophone is filling the low spectrum. What if I feel something in the high? Or, the timbre is just very muddy, or however you want to describe that. But finding something that you authentically believe can make the conversation more rich, right? Like our conversation now is about the conversation about timbre and dynamic, and the answer which I'm giving is being inflected by my voice. But if I were to perhaps speak in a different way, the intent of what I'm trying to say would be realized in a different way. And I think I'll leave you with this great tidbit that was given to me, I think by during my sophomore year of undergrad at Eastman, by good friend Paul Gaspar, amazing trumpet player. But Paul said in a rehearsal about, well, I'll let you figure that out. But he said it's 10% of what you say and 90% of how it's perceived. And I think that's great. Yeah. Yeah, I'll type all these people's names, these artists' names in the chat in just a moment. But thank you all again for tuning in. I'll stick around for a few more minutes to type all this stuff. And look, stay safe out there. Wear your mask. Stay inside. Stay healthy. Show kindness and love. And yeah, much appreciated. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. No problem, Nassim. Did I mention anyone else? I'm trying to think of who else I may have mentioned. Marco, please forgive me if I misspelled your name. Yeah, I'll release a nice list in a week or so of like things that people should be checking out. But thanks again, everyone, and stay safe.